Chapter 369, Reverse Scale, 3. 5. Just because I don't do something, doesn't mean I can't. Summon the Blue Lion Knights. Right after I left Raviol's bedroom, I commanded the ducal household staff. The ducal servants showed a clear sign of dismay. Well, it must be surprising. After all, I had never interfered with the affairs of the Duke Ivantia's family before. For the servants who had spent half a day kissing the cold hallway floor because of blocked acupoints had their faces twisted in anguish. Lady, with all due respect, even if you are the lady of the house, commanding the knights is something you can't just. Did you think I couldn't? Tada. Turns out I can. I pulled a family crest from my pocket and showed it to them. Raviol has given me full authority. My commands are as good as those coming from the mouth of Duke of Ivantia itself. If you're not thinking of switching your jobs to being rebels, then just follow quietly. The servants gritted their teeth and glared at the family crest, as if staring it down would somehow turn it into a fake. I smirked. Why? If you doubt me, why don't you run and ask the Duke whether my words are true or bullshit? Of course, all that would do is add another footprint to your already trampled pride, but every experience is precious. It will serve as nourishment for your lives. We will obey your command. Duchess. Oh, thank you. I pocketed the family crest and waved my hand flippantly. I gestured with an angle specifically designed to irritate humans the most, mimicking.
Yo! So, ha!
S pose. In some ways, isn't that the best example? So, why are you dawdling around? Get to work. Do you think you get your meals for free? I knew Ivantia did charity work for its citizens, but I didn't realize that extended to feeding the servants for free too. As your lady, I must have neglected household duties too much, right? Grit. If you have time to grit your teeth, then accept the command first. Summon the knights. Knights, assemble. The servants scattered, each with a look of let's see about that. Of course, I wasn't scared at all. From the moment they neglected to protect Raviol from possible poisoning, they were going to get chewed out by me repeatedly. They hadn't realized yet that they weren't marking me, I was the one marking them, and they wouldn't need much time to figure that out. Sylvia Evanale.
Ah.
Yes. My lord. After issuing the summoning order, I called Sylvia. The household members following me had already taken control of the ducal annex. Among them, close aides waited in the corridor outside the bedroom, and Sylvia, previously known as the Lady of the Golden Silk, was among them. Sylvia cautiously gauged my expression. To make Raviol feel humiliated? Yes. You were a more pathetic couple than I thought. How else would you expect? You? Sorry. You know best, my lord. Duke Ivantia is someone who wouldn't be shaken by what others do. Sylvia narrowed her eyes. Her only weakness was love. Love. The Crown Prince had no other way to shake the Duke of Ivantia except by cheating with me. That's all he knew. Falling short in studies, diplomacy, administration, public affection, and even schemes. Probably would be the same in swordsmanship too? Despite being born in the most noble imperial family in the empire, there was not a single thing he was better at than the Duke of Ivantia. So you're saying he wanted to have a secret affair with you to feel superior to Raviol? Yes. He's trash after all. Is this your first time seeing trash? Sylvia replied nonchalantly. There are many like him in the world. A lot. The problem is, even if there are many such people in the world, it just had to be that this one is the imperial crown prince. Up until now, I've left him alone as a warning to behave. It seems that won't work anymore. Sylvia raised her head to look at me. I also looked at Sylvia and spoke. I'll bring him down. Sylvia's eyes widened, but that was it. The surprise she showed was just to that extent. Rather, what Sylvia said next surprised me. I'd rather oppose that. Why? Out of loyalty to an old lover? Loyalty my ass. No, it's just easier if the crown prince ascends to the emperor's throne. The actual idiom used here is different in Korean, but the meaning is the same as I have used. As I wasn't able to make any sense in English, I used an alternative here. What do you mean? That man won't be able to rule the empire smoothly once he becomes emperor. Sylvia asserted confidently. At most 10 years, at least 5 years, it will start. Voices condemning the emperor's incompetence and cruelty, from nobles and commoners alike. Then, wouldn't it be totally easy for the Ivantia Duchy to oust the emperor right at that moment? Well, of course we can replace the crown prince easily even now if we want to. Easily. Since the real power of the empire is already shifting to Ivantia. But the people don't yet understand what a fool the crown prince is. If Ivantia is to become the new imperial family, it's better to have the people's support at that point. What? Why are you looking at me like that? No. It's just unexpected. You do have a knack for politics. Sylvia made a face as if she had eaten shit. Look here. If it weren't for you, my lord, I would have become the crown princess and then the empress, and brought down the Duke Ivantia myself. Right? Yes, that's right. Sylvia was also a regressor. It's a pertinent piece of advice, but the head chamberlain seems to be under a misapprehension. A misapprehension? Yes. I do intend to bring down the crown prince, but I am not particularly hoping that Raviel becomes the new emperor. Why not? I answered calmly. It's obvious. If she becomes emperor, then Raviel, who is already busy, will become even busier than now. Sylvia parted her lips. Really? Really, for such a trivial reason? Rather, I don't know what other reason would be more necessary than this. You crazy nutch. I mean, right? That's something you would do, family head. More than that. Damn. It's annoying when I'm with you, the standard by which I weigh everything in the world gets weird. Sylvia scratched the back of her head and muttered, that's why such a woman and you could fall in love with each other. So, you just want to replace the crown prince but keep the royal family as it is, right? Bingo. Then, we'll need to elevate someone else, maybe the second prince, third prince, first princess, fourth prince, or second princess. Damn it. Am I the only vassal familiar with the empire's affairs who was chosen to be your counselor because of this? Sylvia grumbled. If you ask me to recommend someone, it would be the second prince. He might not have the ability to think for himself, but he's not capable of messing things up on his own like the crown prince. He's harmless. Is there no one among the royals who would be a wise or virtuous emperor, or who shows any potential for greatness? Sylvia snorted. If there were someone like that, would the crown prince have maintained his position? She was the head chamberlain indeed, striking with the facts. 6. The next day, Raviel and I entered the imperial palace. It wasn't the real palace in the capital city. Sormwin had grown into the second capital, and accordingly, a separate palace had been established there. Coincidentally, the emperor was staying here at the time. If it had been the capital's palace, he wouldn't have dared to order a poisoning through a servant. Raviel said. However, this place is different. Apart from His Majesty's personal attendants, most of the servants here are those of the Crown Prince's faction. It would have been relatively easy to plot a poisoning. Of course, it was only relatively speaking. The Crown Prince had mobilized all his connections and power to orchestrate this assassination. However, only 2 servants at the annex were actually involved in the poisoning. Had we not known, it would have just been the Crown Prince's last desperate flail, but now we were fully aware of who participated in the poisoning. During the past 2 weeks of fun, nearly half a month of rest, Raviel and I weren't just confined to enjoying decadence in our bedroom. We had gathered information about the servants' families, their home circumstances, and their ties to the Crown Prince. Please, I beg you, show mercy at least to my family. I am willing to be enslaved. Even if you cut my body into pieces and throw it into the sea, I will accept it willingly. Please. Just spare my family. We were able to easily extract confessions from the servants. The perpetrators' confessions were immediately reported to the emperor. Initially skeptical, the emperor could only groan after interrogating the culprits himself. How foolish. Was that child really so foolish? The emperor lamented. It was distressing for him as the chosen successor was his son. However, I was prepared to bring even greater sorrow to the emperor. Your Majesty. The foolishness of trying to poison Duke Ivantia is shocking enough, but the foolishness you need to scrutinize is even more disastrous. What is it, O ruler from another world? The emperor regarded me not as the Duchess of Ivantia but as a monarch from the Lion world. At formal occasions, I would hold the emperor in the highest regard, but in a secure space like this, the emperor himself did not insist on maintaining his dignity or authority. The Crown Prince has currently gone hunting with his close aides. According to intelligence, his equipment is unusually substantial for just a hunting trip. I cocked my head. He even had his horse armored. Isn't that too armed for merely hunting beasts? The emperor's silence grew heavy. Although he was being betrayed by his own son, he was originally an astute monarch. He must have instantly grasped the hidden meaning in my words. The emperor turned and commanded his Grand Chamberlain, the old man who had adopted me as his son. Go immediately to check the guards at both the main and rear gates. Yes, Your Majesty. The old man quickly inspected the security at the annex and returned. Your Majesty. There was nothing unusual at the main gate, but the guard supposed to be at the rear gate was absent, and the number of his underlings present wasn't even half the required contingent.
Ah.
The emperor sighed deeply. Is that child truly intending to harm me? No one responded. Raviel remained silent throughout. Her mere presence was enough. Reporting the poisoning, detailing the confessions of the culprits, and clarifying the Crown Prince's intentions, such words that might be interpreted as disloyalty to the emperor were spoken only by me. Even when reporting the tragedy to the emperor, I spoke not as the Duchess of Ivantia but as a representative from another world. It was better not to create grounds for future accusations. Your Majesty. Please summon the Crown Prince who has gone hunting. I pushed for a decisive action. If the Crown Prince is innocent, he will respond to the Emperor's call. There's no reason for him to refuse. However, if he indeed orchestrated all this tragedy, he might flee, fearing his plans have been exposed. Very well. It shall be done. The Emperor followed my advice and sent a messenger. A breathlessly tense period followed. It was a while before the messenger returned. The Imperial Chamberlain whispered something to the messenger. After the messenger left the audience chamber, the Chamberlain spoke up. Your Majesty. Is the child coming? I regret to report, but the Crown Prince has turned his horse around and left with his men. Silence fell in the audience chamber. During that time, the Emperor seemed to age 5 years. Despite the arrival of beings from another world and maintaining calm to govern the empire as peacefully as possible, the rebellion of his son seemed to have broken his heart. Duke. For the first time, the emperor addressed the Duke. Raviel, as if she had been waiting, slowly bowed her head. Yes, your majesty. Speak. What should I do for you, Duke? I shall remain loyal to your majesty as always. This incident was not an excuse for Raviel to rebel against the empire. That was what she conveyed. The emperor closed his mouth again. Silence flowed. I have truly done you wrong. The voice that came from the emperor's mouth sounded less like that of a ruler of an empire and more like that of a father of a child. I have long known my son was lacking and foolish. I also knew you were a clever child. Even if he was lacking, I thought he would be able to manage the country well with your support, but was that judgment also blinded by my fatherly love? Even that. Your Majesty. It was already over from the moment I abandoned you and became infatuated with the Baron's daughter. How can I blame only my son for being foolish? My foolishness is greater. Your Majesty has always shown interest and favor to this humble subject since the days I was a young lady. I'm sorry. The Emperor closed his eyes. The Crown Prince is no longer the Crown Prince of the Empire. Nor will he be my son anymore. At this moment, the fate of the Crown Prince was decided. He was born a prince, but he would not die as one. Let the house of Duke Ivantia handle this matter. That day, I led the Duke's knights in pursuit of the Crown Prince. Chapter 370, Reverse Scale, 4. 7. The Crown Prince, along with his close aides, stealthily hid himself in a small town. It was more of an escape than a flight, indeed, an escape from reality. First, let's send an envoy to suggest surrender. I surrounded the small town with the Duke Ivantia's knights, the Imperial Knights, and my own vassals. We then formally sent an envoy to propose surrender politely. Of course, the Crown Prince, who had fled from reality, was not in any mood to observe such formalities. According to the envoy who returned, His Highness the Crown Prince screamed, "You are invaders from another world. I am the foundation of the empire. I will never bow my head to the likes of lowlifes from another world." I clicked my tongue after hearing the news. How foolish. Yes. If I had intimidated the Crown Prince without any justification, I would have been treated as an invader from another world. There were quite a few nobles and citizens of the empire who disliked the other world. If handled well, the Crown Prince's argument that we must stand against the threat of the other world could have gained traction. However, I had the legitimacy granted by the Emperor. From the clothes I was wearing to the Empire's attire, I was none other than the wife of the Duke of Ivantia, acting under the solemn command of His Majesty the Emperor, not a monarch from another world. Checkmate. What are you planning to do now? Sylvia approached me and asked. She, being well versed in the affairs of the Empire, was assisting me. Based on my past experiences with him, I would advise you to drop any expectations of his surrender. That man. Once he sets his mind on something, he does not relent. So what if he doesn't surrender? So? I grasped the hilt of the holy sword. I'll capture him. That night, I alone climbed over the city walls. The Crown Prince's forces were seemingly prepared for a siege, as the security was quite strict. Which is to say, it was quite strict but not nearly strict enough. If they wanted to stop me, they needed to have set up an immensely meticulous and terrifying security, not this, my good man. Less than an hour had passed before I infiltrated the Crown Prince's bedroom. Huff. Ahem. The blonde Crown Prince was deeply asleep, oblivious to the world, even though the knights outside his bedroom were all knocked out. I snickered and poked his cheek. Hey. You. Aren't you going to wake up? The crown prince squinted murkily at me. He still hadn't grasped reality. Ugh huh. What is it? What is it, indeed? How can you not prepare yourself properly? I am the one who married your first fiancé and has taken your second fiancé as a vassal. What? Hyuk. Only then did the crown prince's eyes snap open. I had been waiting for this moment. I immediately flicked the prince's eyelid with my finger. Ayok. My eye. The crown prince covered his face and fell from the bed. TCH. That was a light tap, and you're making such a fuss. Guards. Guard sis. There's an intruder. An intruder has appeared. What are you guards doing? Your guards are all knocked out. You udon noodle vongol muscle jampong bastard. You xiaoliangtang leftover noodles that don't come out even after 30 minutes of ordering. Can't you tell that I'm gently stroking your eyebrows? Udon noodle vongol muscle jampong are different types of noodles. Guards. Guards sis. I crouched down and looked down at the crown prince. The so-called condescending pose. The crown prince, having never expected to find himself in such a position due to his royal birth, shuddered violently as our eyes met. Why is no one responding to my call? Because I've covered a 6-meter radius around us with an aura dome. No matter how much you whimper, the sound won't reach outside the barrier. That's impossible, dash. It's happened. And it will continue. Crown Prince. Since I don't like facing you either, let's finish this quickly. I pulled out a scroll from my bosom. It was an imperial edict stamped with the emperor's seal. What? Wah. What is that? The crown prince, recognizing the seal, gaped. I flicked my finger and this time hit the crown prince's lips. Huiik. A truly disgraceful scream echoed. My dear child. For your simple little head, I will personally paraphrase His Majesty the Emperor's sublime words. I smiled broadly at the crown prince whose lips were now burst open. From today, you will be studying abroad in our world. Street, study abroad? What nonsense is this? Well. It's called study abroad to sound nice, but it's actually exile. You bastard. Did you really think you could get away with trying to poison Raviel and threatening the emperor? The crown prince's face turned pale. He must have realized that I held all the evidence. I have countless nobles who follow me. They will never tolerate such tyranny. That's the funny thing. If things stay as they are, all of them will be implicated in treason and lose their heads. But I am going to give them a chance. A chance. Yes. A chance to cut ties with you and save their own lives. I tapped the crown prince's forehead with the scroll. Each time the edict touched his forehead, the prince twitched and shuddered. The nobles didn't join you in treason. His Majesty the Emperor has ordered you to study abroad in another world. But, you were afraid and unfamiliar with going to another world, like a teenager throwing a tantrum saying no. You didn't throw the tantrum by yourself. You begged the nobles to please hide you. And the nobles, unable to refuse the crown prince's request coldly, secretly hid you here, but the secret didn't last long before His Majesty found out. The crown prince looked up at me dazedly. I raised the corners of my mouth. Still don't understand the situation? This is my scenario. According to this, the nobles don't have to bear the sin of treason. They only remain guilty of indulging the immature whims of a worthless crown prince. Now, if you alone are sent to study abroad, it's a happy ending for everyone. I wonder how the nobles will react, huh? Oh my, will they say, "We will follow His Highness the Crown Prince even if our families are destroyed and our heads roll"? What do you think? Aak. Aak. The Crown Prince, finally grasping my true intentions, began to struggle frantically. You plague of another world. It's all because of you. Everything fell apart after you came. You took away not only the cute and lovely lady of the golden silk but also the Duke Ivancha's daughter. If it weren't for you. Please have sweet dreams, Your Highness. I pressed a point on the Crown Prince's body. When you wake up, the world will have changed. And then, the prince's world went dark. 8. Hook. The Crown Prince bolted upright. He was sweating profusely and gulped down his saliva. Was it a dream? Phew. Did you have a nice dream last night? Kaiawa kaak. As soon as he saw my face, as if he had seen a terrible monster, the Crown Prince jumped. Where exactly is this place? This is the 29th floor. Dear customer. I grinned broadly. It used to be a school genre stage managed by the corner librarian. Among my vassals, there was a fellow named Kim Yul who lived here.
Ha! Ha!
Of course, such information is useless to you. The only crown prince of the empire, destined to wear the emperor's crown. The only piece of information you need to remember is that in this world, no one will treat you as the crown prince. Knock knock. Someone knocked on the door from behind. Come in. Yes. I'm coming in. With a lively voice, Sylvia entered through the door. What greeted her was a two-payong studio apartment. No, calling it a studio was too generous, it was actually a gashawan. 2 payong equals 6.6 sq meter and gashawan is a tiny single room for rent. Sylvia looked around the room and immediately furrowed her brow. Wow, it's so cramped. Family head, can he really live in such a tight space? It seems absolutely impossible to me. That is now the reality he must face. Did you speak well with the gashawan owner?
Ah.
Yes. Their eyes lit up the moment they saw the gold bars, and they said they look forward to our patronage. They seem to think we are some kind of mafia from abroad. Good. The 29th floor was currently operating as an academy city. Babylon had schools too, but a systematic public education system hadn't yet been established. Thus, the 29th floor, where time was fixed to the era when Kim Yul lived, was being used as a venue for education. See, Sylvia. The Crown Prince, completely unaware of these circumstances, was stunned by Sylvia's appearance. Sylvia, dressed in modern clothes instead of a voluminous dress, flashed a grin. Yes, Huangte. It's Sylvia Evanale. Oh. My Sylvia. My nightingale with the name of the golden silk. You must have rushed here to save me from the clutches of this devil. I only trusted you. My delicate golden silk.
Ew.
What is this? It feels like I opened up a diary filled with dark history. Sylvia made a disgusted face. Anyway. I also took care of all sorts of miscellaneous paperwork while greeting the gashawan owner, family head. Starting next week, that crown prince will be able to enroll in school. He'll become the transfer student, the blonde prince. Good work. Really, it's nothing but hardships. But I shouldn't be the one to say this. The bureaucrats of this stage are too corrupt, aren't they? The administration is as full of holes as a sponge. Well. It just proved the omnipotent power of gold bars. I wonder how much you fed them. The Crown Prince watched us chatter heartily, completely losing his soul. See, Sylvia? Do you not recognize me? And why did you call me Huangte earlier?
Ah.
Right. I almost forgot. Sylvia rummaged through her briefcase and pulled out something. It was a card. This will now be the only means to verify your identity, Your Highness. Sylvia courteously handed over a newly made student ID card. On the ID, the Crown Prince's photo was printed, his eyes half closed. The text on it read, Plus. Student ID. Name, Kim Huangte. Affiliation, Shinseo High School. Plus. Kim Huangte? Yes. That's your name from today. I sent him a zesty smile. Huangte, you're a second-generation expatriate who happened to return to the country. But you've been kicked out of your home and are living alone in this Goshuan. Naturally, you have no allowance, and you'll need to find part-time jobs or menial work to earn money. Do you understand? Part-time job? Menial work? What nonsense are you spouting? Yes, it seems our Huangte hasn't grasped the situation at all, which I find quite satisfying. I patted Kim Huangte's head. If you're 3 months behind on rent here at the Goshuan, you're out. If you skip school for more than a week, you're out. To our Huangte, who has been pampered as royalty his entire life, this world might feel quite harsh. But, Huangte, that is precisely the real reality. Endure it. Cheer up. You can do it. I clenched my fist tightly. Although no one in this city will treat you as a crown prince. And they won't care where you've come tumbling from. Originally. The world doesn't care about you at all. Work. As a student, there won't be many ways to earn money. But, that's just how it is. Earning money is inherently hard. Work and work hard, and with your effort and sweat, secure enough food to survive the day. If you can't, you might starve to death. You'll die, perhaps. But that, too, is the natural course of things. Huangte. I grabbed Kim Huangte's shoulders. And I asked him, face looking as if his soul had left his body. How long have you ever gone without food? What? Wah. Don't worry. If you starve for a couple of days, you'll see the world differently. I'll be cheering for our Kim Huangte's new life from afar. Fighting. I put down 30,000 won and turned my back. Sylvia also bowed deeply to Kim Huangte. Farewell, Your Highness Huangte. Honestly, if you had ever sought me out after I became indebted to the family head, I might have done something for you now. Well. Can't be helped. I too will support you from a distance. We both swiftly left the room. As we walked down the gloomy staircase, Sylvia said. So, how many years do you plan to keep him before sending him back to the Empire? Send him back? Why send him at all? He should live out his life here. The second prince has already been designated as the successor. Even if he returns, what awaits him but further purges? Leaving him here is a mercy, true mercy. You really are a devil, family head. From beyond the Goshuan staircase, a desperate scream was heard. That day, a blonde prince, a foreign student, transferred to the 29th floor's Shinseo High School. According to later stories, Kim Huangte, who had fasted for 4 days straight, eventually started helping with menial tasks for the Goshuan owner and began his second school life. Hang in there, Kim Huangte. You are the protagonist of this spin-off. Chapter 371, Home Base 1. 1. It's been over 3 months since I returned to Babylon. During those 3 months, I played with Raviel, established new diplomatic relations with the underground civilization, was surprised with Raviel, watched Kim Hwang-tae transfer to high school, played more with Raviel, and caught up on various overdue tasks. It truly was a fruitful time, but at the 100-day mark, I suddenly looked up. I think it's time to climb the tower again. A moment of silence passed. At that time, I was lying on the sofa, reading a magazine. A magazine with my interview in it. What Kim Gongja thinks being a hunter is. Everything you need to know about the hunter industry. 100 questions, 100 answers, such cheesy mixed headlines were printed. Who would read this? After the silence, a reaction came belatedly. Why all of a sudden? It was the Black Dragon Master. Anastasia was sitting in the opposite armchair, reading the same magazine. By the way, Anastasia was also the cover model of this magazine. The cover of the magazine was as if all of human civilization had been mobilized to embody the concept of nobility, but at this very moment Anastasia was, completely in Sunday evening slouching at home older sister mode. She was chewing on squid legs, dressed in a maroon tracksuit that seemed like something high schoolers would wear. It was a sight that made you want to make all sorts of snarky comments, like, did they have maroon gym uniforms in Ukraine, or, did Ukrainians also chew on squid legs? But all of Anastasia was perfect, preventing any comments. Her posture. Her expression. Even the crunchy sound of her teeth chewing on the squid legs. A true Korean unemployed delinquent LV.99. Anastasia's pose was so natural that I had no choice but to accept it as the order of nature. No. If I keep staying here, I feel like my body will rot. Shall I say I'm getting moldy? It's like damp moisture is filling up my heart and mold is about to bloom in my head. At my words, one by one, my friends began to raise their heads. This is the common living room of our dormitory. In the evening when work was over, everyone gathered here in groups of 3 or 5 without any particular plans, and as a result, the Count, Venomous Snake, and Heretic Questioner all lifted their heads at the same time, creating a harmony. Moisture? Mold? I don't understand what you are talking about. Liao Fan. Do you get it? Well. It's not the first or second time he's talking nonsense, what about it? Miss Sylvia. Could we please have another half plate of French fries here? By the way, friends were wearing yellow, navy, and blue tracksuits. I'm not sure when made in Korea tracksuits became the dress code for this shared accommodation. Based on a vague memory, I recall being the first to roam around the lodging in a black tracksuit, which Anastasia saw and asked, "Oh, that looks very comfortable." What are those? And exactly the next day, the tragedy began. Yep. I'd rather bury this memory for the sake of my mental health. That's exactly it. That's the thing. I suddenly stood up and pointed accusingly at the Heretic Questioner. Just then, Sylvia delivered the French fries with an ugly face, and the Heretic Questioner was happily picking up a fry end with a bright expression. The Heretic Questioner blinked with ketchup around his mouth. Not it's yes. Damn it, Bambolina. You're slurping up those potato fries with your bare hands, in a tracksuit, with ketchup smeared on your lips. Master. Normally, fries are indeed eaten with the hands. I would hate to think that my master would use a fork or chopsticks just because he doesn't want the salt on his fingers, a complete travesty. Well, if I had to choose, I'm on Team Chopsticks though. Oh my God. Goodness gracious. Are you crazy? I'm really disappointed, Kim Gongja. In order, the Heretic Questioner, the Count, Venomous Snake, and Black Dragon Master looked at me as if they were looking at trash. And just at that moment, the Crusader walked past the living room with a towel around her neck. For the record, I'm on Team Plastic Gloves. The Crusader nodded her head slightly and trudged past the living room. We watched the Crusader's retreating figure for a while, looking as if she was about to head to the mountain spring behind the house right at that moment. Anyway, that's not what's important. I snapped back to my senses belatedly. You all. You're rotten. Everything has gone rotten. Before, it felt like we were treading on the edge of a knife. Why have you all become so endlessly slack? Rotten, you say. That's quite the rude thing to say. If you're going to talk like that, at least take off those triple-striped slippers. Yeah, but they're comfortable. Yes, Anastasia sitting in the armchair was indeed wearing triple-striped slippers on her bare feet. Not just Anastasia, but all the friends here were the same. School tracksuits and triple-striped slippers, fashion terrorists that could only be found in South Korea had taken over the upper echelons of the tower. Could this also be my influence? Seeing me wander around comfortably and then one by one they started imitating? My God. No one ever wished for a Hallyu wave like this. If I stay with you guys any longer, even my brain might turn weird. You should be working. The subordinates are probably dying because work's piled up and here you are, lounging around. Well, we are not the subordinates, are we? That's right. We just work when we need to and leave the rest to the subordinates. Isn't that what we pay them for? Sometimes it's very important to relax. Master. You're wrong. These guys. Their brains must have been infected with mitochondrial Enterobacter tetracy influenza bacteria. There's no hope or dream left. Never mind. I'm going to climb the tower. Seriously? Yes, for real. I really am going to climb. Because if I stay with you guys, I think I'll become weird too. If I stay holed up here any longer, I'll lose all interest in conquering stages and end up an unemployed uncle, so I'm going to climb. My friends looked at me blankly. Well, go ahead then. Do as you wish. Since all the urgent tasks are dealt with, live your life as you want. Everything will proceed according to the master's will. Wow, these French fries are freaking delicious. Hey, Gongja's Chamberlain. What oil did you use to fry these? Give me the recipe to have my guys cook it too. Overall, it seemed like only about 0.5 people were paying attention to what I said. Just as I was starting to doubt whether these guys were really my friends or comrades who had entrusted their lives to each other, the Crusader who had left the living room returned. The Crusader, holding an electric toothbrush in one hand, glanced around at us. For the record, I think socks are better than bare feet with triple-striped slippers. And then she nodded her head and walked past the living room. Everyone watched silently as the Crusader's back receded, until the Count decided to throw her slipper at the back of the Crusader's head with all her might. I'm really going. Okay? Going? I said I'm going. For real. There was no response. Surprisingly, no one seemed interested in me as the Count and the Crusader began to tussle. Feeling like an adult who had been alienated from his family, I headed towards the next stage with heavy, powerless steps. You are being transferred to the 80th floor. So that's how I ended up here. As expected, a hunter should climb the tower. No, now I'm a constellation, or should I say I'm both a hunter and a constellation? Anyway, one must climb to higher places. See? The air is already different when you reach the 80th floor, isn't it? You. The Wand of Ages looked at me with an incredulous stare. I'm sorry, but have you ever been told you seem like an idiot? That's a bit harsh. 2. The administrator who greeted me on the 80th floor was the Wand of Ages. The mage looked at me with his unchanged silver blade-like eyes, and more than anything, with very sullen eyes. What? I was worried about when you would start climbing again. I thought you might not come for a while, but you've come at just the right time. Yes, I finished everything I needed to do on the first floor. Huh? I suddenly noticed something different about the Wand of Ages. The look in his eyes hadn't changed. Neither had his face nor his clothes. It was just his symbolic item, the wand. A wand as thick as a pinky finger but very long, his trademark, was now cleanly snapped in half. Why is the wand like that? Did you fight with someone? Fight with someone? Are you really asking because you don't know? The Wand of Ages let out a hollow laugh. I lost to you in a fight. Screaming Sky. After the control of the underworld was transferred to you, I've been like a broken wand. Eek. But you are still managing the heavenly floors. That's true. For now. Just for now. The mage sighed. If you fail to reach the 100th floor or give up midway, I will return to being a complete pillar. If you succeed in conquering the 100th floor, I'll be gone for good. It's really frustrating, but right now, I am not in a position to guide you, but rather, a position to serve you like a superior. Indeed. I nodded my head. Then, I'd like a vending machine barley tea now, could you get me one? First of all, yes. I understand trying to boss me around right after saying I'm in a position to serve you. Let's say I concede that point. But why, of all things, vending machine barley tea? Think about it, mage. Do tell. Imagine your boss isn't asking for anything other than barley tea, and from a vending machine at that. Asking you to buy only that one thing. Then, how would you feel while putting money in the vending machine, pressing the button, and waiting? It would probably feel like how I feel right now. See. You know well. Why aren't you hurrying to get it? This damn. 3 minutes passed. I slurped the vending machine barley tea that the mage brought. The chaotic taste of barley powder and sugar merged, making it indistinguishable where the barley ended and the sugar began in my mouth. This is the taste. This is exactly the nostalgic taste that the director of Memorial Gourmet once talked about. I wonder if this could also be turned into a spin-off series. You won't die peacefully. I couldn't die anyway. Now. Did the barley tea I illegally fetched taste good? Yes. It's delicious. Then listen while drinking. From the 71st to the 80th floor was the stage for you to establish yourself as a constellation. And you passed this course more perfectly than any other constellation. Now, from the 81st to the 90th floor, it's your turn to build your own kingdom. I tilted my head with the straw in my mouth. My own kingdom? Yes. Also called a sanctuary. Many also refer to it as a holy domain or dragon kingdom. The mage touched the air with his broken wand. Then a white cube appeared and projected something on its surface. A familiar scenery appeared in that place. That's the Universal Library. Correct? The Universal Library is the sanctuary of the corner librarian, specifically Hamustra's domain. Seeing the example, I get what they want me to create. The ox that harvests ruins, Musha's domain was a temple buried in the desert. The eye living in the labyrinth, the domain of Hishmith Kritz, which you are currently wearing as a bracelet, was a doll exhibition hall. Even hunters who do not become constellations are allowed their own space if they pass up to the 90th floor. In short, I removed my lips from the straw. I'm about to have my own home from now on. Yes. Tap. The mage tapped the ground with his wand. A palace of your very own. You are being transferred to the 81st floor. White light enveloped my vision. Chapter 372, Home Base, 2. When I stepped out of the light, I found myself in a kingdom of my own. Unfortunately, nothing like this happened. It was total darkness there. Wow, what the? It's really dark here? Only darkness. When I cautiously took a step forward, my ankle squished into something, sinking into somewhere. It was as if I had accidentally stepped into a mud puddle. The feel of the darkness was much like a mass of mud. Well, that's because nothing has been created here yet. The Wand of Ages spoke from behind me. This place is basically bare ground, not even the skeleton of a house has been set up yet. Not to mention built-in furniture, there isn't even a roof. Screaming Sky, you have cleared stages and earned enough land, but you haven't built a house yet. So, I'm a landowner, but not a homeowner yet. If you put it that way, I wonder if I've worked myself to the bone from the 10th to the 80th floor just to buy a single plot of land. If life were compared to 100 floors, securing the land would mean I've already achieved 80% of my life's goals. It's uncomfortably realistic. Where can I find an architect or an interior designer to hire? Sorry, but you are the architect and the interior designer. You're no longer a hunter who passively receives quests and carries out tasks. Well, if we must put it in the form of a quest. The mage drew letters in the air with his staff. It would be something like this. Wherever the tip of the staff went, bright white letters spread out. Plus. Build your own kingdom. Constellation, the sky that gathers screams. Difficulty, undetermined. Mission objective, create a sanctuary. Plus. I nodded. Simple enough. Be good. Save the world. Help humanity. The hardest tasks in the world are always expressed in one sentence. So, I will just watch you diligently build your palace and occasionally interject here and there. The mage sighed softly. There's one problem though. Life is nothing but problems. Yep. But this problem needs immediate resolution. You're usually good at cleaning up your tracks before you leave. But now, it seems there's one connection you haven't properly tied up. An untied connection? An unresolved human relationship? Did I still have such things? I had thought my social relationships were not just cleaned, but bleached thoroughly since the time I performed the Cossack dance for.
Yo. So? Ha!
It seems you're mistaken. I'm a man who has sorted everything out. Actually, I've been waiting for when you would come up. That thing is only a nuisance for a day or two, but it comes in every day to harass me, so it's been unbearable. Crararak. Somewhere, an ominous ripping sound was heard. I turned my head to see whether to call it the sky, the ceiling, or simply the darkness above. A curtain there was splitting apart. Congratulations, Screaming Sky. The mage stepped back 3 paces from me as if dodging something. He wore an ominous smile. You are now officially a famous and popular constellation. What do you? In the constellation world, there is a stalker that follows only the celebrities. You've drawn the attention of many constellations. Unfortunately, it seems the stalker has heard about you too. I can't help, but good luck. SSSSSHHHHHH. As the fissure opened, black liquid flowed out. It was dark here, but it was just as dark beyond the curtain. However, the entity that fell to the ground covered in black liquid was not merely black. Warning. Constellation Killer has appeared on the 81st floor. Constellation Killer harbors hostility towards you. The being had hair as white as platinum. Are you the sky that gathers screams? The man with silver hair spoke to me in a familiar voice. However, that was all that was familiar. The temperature of his gaze as he looked at me was entirely different from that of my servant who had now regained the name Kim Yul. Above all, the man in front of me still had his hair tied with a yellow rubber band. Lafanta Ejim. Constellation Killer slowly tilted his head. His eyes, blue as a newly born star, looked this way. Do you know me? Yes. You were the one who remained. I know you very well. As the mage said, there was indeed one cause and effect I had left untied. 3. Constellation Killer is a multiple body slaughtering puppet. Previously, I had taken the existence known as Kim Yul from Constellation Killer. More precisely, I had succeeded in restoring it. Constellation Killer gains power by discarding memories. He had discarded all past associated with being Kim Yul. However, through trauma, I was able to forcibly see his past and thus restored Kim Yul from these glimpses. Yet, I had merely created a being with memories identical to Kim Yul's. Still there was a combat doll with amnesia known as Constellation Killer wandering the world. Thanks to the S-grade skill he possessed. Plus. Puppeteer's Parade. Rank S. Effect, in some world, there lived an old puppeteer. The puppeteer was afraid of receiving love, but he wasn't strong enough to endure eternal solitude. Let's make another me. So, the puppeteer designed it. Let the other me be loved. Let it live with people, among people. And if it gets hurt, I'll throw it away, whispered the puppeteer. Erase it forever. Countless puppets lived. Countless puppets were discarded. This skill is a black art for the weak. The ability to choose or throw away memories. You can make 13 puppets that have the exact same appearance and abilities as you. When one puppet dies, another one awakens. Broken dolls can be repaired. It is your imitation of immortality. A fabricated eternity. However, memories are not shared between puppets. Plus. 13 puppets. Day by day, constantly losing memories and slaughtering constellations. That was the true identity of Constellation Killer. I created the 14th puppet and implanted Kim Yul's memories into it. I gave the 14th puppet the name Kim Yul, not Constellation Killer or Lafanta Ejim. In other words, the 13 puppets I hadn't collected were still out there somewhere. I'm sorry. I can't remember you. And so it had arrived here now. To assassinate me, whose reputation as a constellation had grown. If you tell me when we met, I can search for records about you. Constellation Killer pulled out an old notebook from his pocket. I knew what this shabby item was. A diary. An item carried by Constellation Killer to overcome the absolute weakness that the puppets not being able to share memories. Even though memories are disconnected, the sentences written in the notebook are shared exactly the same in other diaries. No. I shook my head. You and I have definitely met before. We shared the same time. But you won't be able to find any records about me in the diary you're holding. And why is it that I won't be able to find them? Because I met you in a past before you obtained the diary. In a time that you can never look back on and can never recover. I see. Are you a time manipulator? Constellation Killer was calm. Even though I told him that I had seen his past, he did not seem curious at all. It seems you will be a troublesome enemy. I appreciate the clue about your ability. I know much more about you than you know about yourself. That's true for everyone in this world. It's not a special personal detail. Constellation Killer wrote something in his diary. I read the direction in which the pen was swiftly moving, retraced it, and constructed the sentences written in the notebook in my mind. Plus. The sky that gathers screams. Possesses a time skill. Can know the opponent's past. It is speculated that there was a point of contact with me in the past. Plus, reconstructing the letters was quite easy. That's because it's in Korean. I don't understand what you mean. Constellation Killer's face was as impassive as ever. Seeing his expression, my heart tightened. Was he just using it without even knowing what the characters he wrote meant? Probably to Constellation Killer, these letters were characters that he naturally learned without knowing why. That's why he used them when writing sentences that would be problematic if others recognized them, like when writing in his diary, as if they were a code known only to himself. He was an exile who had lost his homeland. Due to forgetting his language, he was a phasic. Because he had discarded his own existence, he was non-existent. I silently gazed at the one who had become exiled, a phasic, and lost his presence. Even though he was using the same yellow rubber band and writing the same letters from the same hometown as me, unlike when I saw Anastasia and others in gym clothes, my heart was only perplexed. I've been chasing you for 31 days. Constellation Killer snapped the notebook shut. The dull sound broke my train of thought. Since 31 days ago? That's right. However, each time I tried to invade the lion world, there was an old swordsman in a black suit who blocked me every time. Constellation Killer muttered as I looked puzzled. The old man declared his alias as Sword Saint. My eyes widened. So that was it. I had wondered why I hadn't seen Marcus Grandpa's face at all, thinking he was fighting Constellation Killer in places unknown to me. During the 100 days I stayed in Babylon, I never met Marcus Grandpa. Nor did my other companions know of the Sword Saint's whereabouts. I had secretly guessed he might have gone on a solitary training journey, but little did I know he was preventing Constellation Killer's invasions. I wish to become your bodyguard. I want to be your bodyguard, protect your life, and forever guard the humanity of those around you. Marcus Grandpa's words about wanting to be my bodyguard were not empty. Grandpa had become a defensive barrier for us, the walls of the lion world, exchanging swords with invaders in places we could not see. The troubled feeling I had when I saw Constellation Killer was somehow refilled with an inexplicable pride. I tried to invade through different routes numerous times, but each time the old man was a step ahead and blocked me. He might possess a skill to sense my movements or a skill to detect outsiders trying to invade that world. The Constellation Killer said. In the end, it was only after you left the lion world that I finally succeeded in chasing you. I see. That's good news. I grinned. Because it means you ultimately couldn't defeat the Sword Saint. And I am stronger than him. Constellation Killer. There's nothing you can do to defeat me. That's a sound conclusion. Constellation Killer responded nonchalantly to the blatant provocation. Sword Saint even said that even if he were defeated, ultimately, I would surely be defeated by you. Having heard that information, I assessed your threat level as the highest. Just as you said, with my current self alone, I indeed cannot defeat you by any means. That was the moment. Therefore, I have concluded that I need to use every possible means. Crackle. Crack, crack, crack. The fissures already in the sky widened even further. One by one, something kept falling through the gaps. And then, Constellation Killer has appeared on the 81st floor. I witnessed that all of them had silver hair fluttering alike. Constellation Killer has appeared on the 81st floor. 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 I unconsciously closed my lips. All 13 bodies. Even if only one was mobilized, it could sweep away most constellations, and a slaughtering puppet on par with the Sword Saint, now all 13 with streams of silver hair, came up. 13 pairs of eyes simultaneously looked this way. The sky that gathers screams.
Ha!
I designate you as the highest level of threat. From now on, I will use all my strength to annihilate you. I couldn't help but burst into laughter. Hamustra would faint from joy if he saw this scene. The moment I grasped the hilt of the holy sword, all 13 constellation killers charged at me simultaneously. Chapter 373, Blue Blood, 1. 1. The first flower to bloom in spring was blue. Spring had come to the world where Constellation Killer resided. Constellation Killer looked up at the flowers that resembled his own eye color. Originally, in his homeland, yellow or perhaps pink bloomed first. However, he had forgotten the spring of his homeland. To Lefanta Ejim, spring was now merely blue. If I don't want to become a constellation, what should I do? Constellation Killer touched the petals with his fingertips, which had turned white. Constellations determining people's fates should no longer exist. For ordinary people, being a constellation is an overwhelmingly powerful existence. The mere existence of the constellations determines people's lives. They run away from what they should be responsible for. He stopped speaking suddenly, not because he doubted his logic, but because of a very materialistic reason. A bee, lured by the scent of the flower, suddenly landed on Constellation Killer's fingernail. Constellation Killer observed the bee's wings for a long time and then slowly stroked it. Sting! The bee perceived the human stroking as an attack and regurgitated its innards, stinging Constellation Killer's finger with its stinger. The stinger of the insect, which did not entertain the concept of goodwill in this world, was venomous. The poison, cultivated within the insect all its life, infiltrated the flesh of Lefanta Ejim effectively. That was all. The bee, having lost its only reason for existence, soon fell to the ground, trembling. When stored inside, it didn't know, but after stinging once, the poison was a poison that only killed itself. Constellation Killer could have easily detoxified the minor creature's sting using his aura. But he chose not to. Merely observing the swelling flesh inflicted by the trivial, mortal insect's sting with his blue eyes. Indeed. He had realized something. I should have a child. Constellation Killer turned his head. The place he was standing was a noble's garden. Having been chosen by Goddess of Protection and becoming the supreme emperor of all, Lefanta Ejim, after abandoning the throne himself, had traveled through various worlds. This time, by chance, he had stayed longer than expected in this world. Perhaps, he had taken a liking to this garden. A nameless maid was working in the garden. The maid constantly shoveled the soil. It wasn't until Constellation Killer approached close that the maid sensed his presence and looked up. What brings you here? The maid's eyes were red. Is there anything I can help you with, my lord? The maid worked for a noble family that owed Constellation Killer a debt of gratitude. One of the children captured by constellations had been a young lady from this noble family. The family treated Constellation Killer as a noble, and the maid was very polite to him. But that wasn't the only reason. I know you steal glances at me whenever you find the time. The maid's shoulders flinched. With a cautious look, she assessed Constellation Killer's expression, but there was no sign of anger or reproach from him. Relieved, the maid shrugged her shoulders and exhaled, huh. Yes, I did take a few glances. Honestly, aren't you quite handsome? Do you like my face? If someone turns their head unwittingly upon seeing a piece of art while walking, it's not the passerby's fault, but the fault of the person who placed the art in the middle of the road. The maid consistently argued that it was not her fault. However, Constellation Killer had another interest. I want to spend a night with you. Clack. The maid, who had been actively chattering, stopped in her tracks. Only if you consent. Oh. Oh. The maid did not understand this situation. Excuse me. Just a moment, my lord. Do you perhaps have feelings for me? Gasp. Don't tell me, was every walk in the garden just a strategy to approach me? No. I don't mean that kind of feeling. The maid was confused by this situation. So then, why are you hitting on me now? I have long wondered how to escape the path of becoming a constellation. No, I should say I have been contemplating how to maintain my humanity. But I am one who loses memories. Even if I try to remain human, I cannot. The maid still did not understand the situation, nor did she grasp what Constellation Killer was saying. And Lafanta Ejim did not place much value on whether the other party understood or not. In short, he continued nonchalantly. However, if I were to have a child, things might change. It would be the proof that I was once human. The evidence that I am human would clearly remain. The maid cautiously began to speak. I'm not sure if I understood correctly. Anyway, you want to leave behind evidence that you lived, so you're saying you want to spend, one night with me, is that correct? That's right. The maid seemed to have finally grasped the situation. In other words, the person before her was a good-looking madman. Just a moment. I'll think about it. Do that. After putting down her shovel, the maid crossed her arms. After all, you're a hero among heroes who saved this country. It's a story that suggests turning one's life around by inheriting such a person's lineage. But looking at how you talk, it doesn't seem like you'd care much about the child, so this is entirely up to me. But I guess it's not bad to think of it as a kind of gamble. The maid muttered endlessly to herself. Glance. The maid looked at Constellation Killer seriously, from head to toe. Then, suddenly, her gaze rested on Constellation Killer's hand. His finger was swollen from the bee sting. You got stung. Doesn't it hurt? No, it does hurt. Then why do you seem unaffected? Because I am not affected. The maid tapped her chin, muttering to herself as if she had realized something. Indeed. You are alone. What did that mean? Before Constellation Killer could ponder the meaning, the maid quickly clicked her tongue. Fine. My lord. I will sleep with you. The maid's red eyes looked up at Constellation Killer. But there's a condition. What is it? Please stay by my side until the child starts walking. Protect me and the child. And when the child is born, announce to the world that it is your offspring. If these conditions are too difficult, then I absolutely. Understood. I don't know if I should say this, but aren't you agreeing too easily? I thought I set the terms pretty high. Because they are easy conditions. The maid looked at Constellation Killer with unease and then sighed. All right, Mr. Madman. Then just wait until I finish my work today. These kids are suffering from spring sickness, so I need to take good care of them. I will. So even a madman can be a hero. The maid shook her head from side to side and picked up the shovel again. Thud. Thump. As she moved a pile of dirt at the corner of the garden, Constellation Killer finally spoke up. I still don't know your name. What is it? Ivantia. The maid turned her head as she answered. I'm a commoner, so just a first name. Ivantia. That's my name. From a long time ago. Red eyes reflected in the blue flowers. 2. A total of 13 slaughter puppets charged at me simultaneously. I was stronger than Constellation Killer. Definitely stronger. However, it was uncertain whether my strength would still apply when there were 13 Constellation Killers. To put it more bluntly, I was terrified. Extremely terrified. Infernal Heaven's demonic art. First form. Sword of Starvation. It's common for warriors to unleash their most confident strike first when they are frightened. I did just that. I drew my treasured sword and lunged at the slaughter puppets. How about this? Indeed, you are strong. Swoosh dash. Blood sprayed everywhere. A slaughter puppet that got hit directly by my sword had its arm chopped off. By slicing off his right arm with a single strike, I undoubtedly demonstrated tremendous martial prowess. But who cares about my objective skill? It didn't matter at all. I was in a fight, and only the outcome of the fight mattered. The enemy numbered 13, and naturally, each had 2 arms. Meaning, I had only managed to reduce the enemy's total strength by January 26th. The fact that you might be stronger than me. I had already accounted for that. The slaughter puppet that lost its right arm, and in addition, another doll attacked me from both sides. I created a sword wind and chopped off one leg and arm from each, but damn it. It was all useless. Constellation Killer had planned not to block my attacks from the start. 2 Constellation Killers, one grabbed my right arm and the other my left. I screamed in horror. What the hell are you doing? Only Hamustra would be happy with this kind of situation. I gathered aura from all over my body trying to shake off the 2 Constellation Killers. I managed to shake one off. But as if it had been waiting, another slaughter puppet rushed in and firmly grabbed my arm. Just wait a minute. Meanwhile, the remaining slaughter puppets were charging their swords with aura. A total of 9 dolls. Despite clones sticking to my body, they aimed their swords at me with utterly indifferent expressions. A chill ran down my neck. Don't tell me, a suicide attack. I discard the memories of the past 30 days. A flash engulfed me. Quahaha.
Ah.
Ayahiha. Initially, the explosion was unbearably loud, but it quickly turned into tinnitus ringing in my ears. Everything in front of me turned stark white. Somehow, by plastering my whole body with aura like a barrier, I survived Constellation Killer's attack point blank. My body was relatively unscathed. However, the moment I regained my hearing and sight, the voice of the second Constellation Killer doll eerily resounded. I discard the memories of the past 30 days. Flash. My vision flickered. Initially, there was no pain. That strike too had been withstood by my body. But the very next moment, whoosh. The veins coursing through my body began to scream in agony all at once. The aura had been depleted to the extent of burning up my veins to block this strike. Rapidly. Damn it. A metallic taste of blood came from the gums around my teeth. Fuck. I discard the memories of the past 30 days. The third doll said. Constellation Killer's 30 days struck me once again. Intense pain surged throughout my body. Ever since becoming a constellation, and after rising as the absolute champion in the lion world, this was the first time my aura had been completely depleted. My head was dizzy. I was gasping for air. While my heart screamed in agony, I barely managed to maintain my existence. The two slaughter puppets holding my arms were swept away by the recent strikes. I withstood them, but the dolls did not. Unfortunately, it wasn't just the dolls that couldn't withstand the triple strike of Constellation Killer. The snake living in the labyrinth is annihilated. Crazy. I almost spewed a lump of blood from my throat. Annihilated. To be annihilated. Hishmith Kritz was a top-tier constellation. He got caught up with me and his divinity weakened, but that didn't mean he was weak enough to be beaten down everywhere. Yet, that guy just died from the flashes of light that Constellation Killer had fired. And it didn't even end there. I discard the memories of the past 30 days. Fourth strike. A music box only for you groans from a deep wound. Goddess of Protection screams at Hero Nim not to lose consciousness. No. This is madness. No joke, this is really, truly, insane.